Good morning, good morning. This is John Dingfelder. You're listening to WMNF, and our show is Down and Dirty. Friday mornings at 10 in the morning, 10 to 11. We've got Skip on the board. Good morning, Skip.
Hey, good morning, John.
How are you, sir?
Doing great. New year.
New year. Hard to believe, 2025. And Irene is answering the phones, and we're not going to take calls for a little while, but when we do, it's 813-239-9663, and we will be glad to take your calls probably in about 15, 20 minutes, but we want to get into this show as soon as possible. And so we have two fantastic guests here today joining us. The president or chairwoman?
President.
The president of the Tampa Hillsborough chapter of the NAACP, Yvette Lewis, no stranger to WMNF, former board member of WMNF. All right, hold on. We got to work on your microphone. Try it again.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
All right, much better. Good morning. How are you? How's your 2025? We're 3 days in.
So far, it's doing it's good, which is kind of hard to say. You don't really want to jinx it, but, hey, I'm ready for 2025.
Good deal. Good deal. And we also have another good friend, Miss Connie Burton, a good friend. We've known Connie a long time. My wife's known you a very long time, and also a former show person for WMNF.
That is correct. Good morning, peace and power, and thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. We appreciate y'all coming in and chatting with us. Down and dirty. I think that's. I think that's appropriate for you, ladies. You like to get down and dirty with City Hall and the powers to be, and you guys, Miss Connie, you've been doing it for what, 30, 40 years?
Well, it seemed like a lifetime, but it is all done in love. Out of a natural concern for the issues that have a direct impact on my community. So I look forward to going down every Thursday.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go into a little history. What was the first mayor that you went and had contact with and perhaps harassed?
Dick Greco.
Dick Greco on his first go-round or his second go-round?
Well, when Perry Harvey was there. So I was, alert, in tune to city government, trying to understand things. And so I would say Dick Greco would be the first one.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that was Dick's second term right before Pam Ioria.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And how about you, Yvette? When did you first get involved with City Hall? What mayor? Bob Buckhorn?
Bob Buckhorn. That is correct. Yes.
All right. The lovely Bob Buckhorn.
Oh, yeah.
You always saw eye to eye with Bob Buckhorn, right?
Because we were at that same level of height that God placed us at. Yeah.
But other than that.
You got it. Hey, we're the NAACP. That's what we're here for, to educate and agitate.
Yeah. And before you were president in NAACP, I think I read somewhere you had a committee chair position that got you very involved, I think, during that Buckhorn administration, right?
That is correct. So I was the political action chair for the NAACP. And so, and then the community asked me to run for president, and that's where I am now. And you're now, I just got an invitation. Yeah.
You're now going into your fourth two-year term.
Yes.
Which at the end of that term will give you a total of 8 years.
That is correct.
I hope there's a big pension associated with that.
Well, despite what everybody thinks.
There's no money.
There's no money. We all volunteers. But you know what? I love doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, we're lucky to have both of you. So let's talk about those internal elections for a second. Did you have a contest this go round?
No, we were all unopposed. So that speaks to what we have been doing in the community.
Excellent.
And how we've been doing things. So this election was a great election. No one was really contested, and so everybody was good, and we just ran smoothly.
And Ms. Connie, are you on the board over there as well? Or?
Believe it or not, I ran for second vice president and ran unopposed, and so I'm there to serve at the bequest of the president and the community.
That's excellent. So you and J.D. Vance are both vice president.
Well, yeah. Well, we got different ideologies, but we're there.
As an aside, Lynn and I actually watched that movie last night, which is called Hillbilly Elegy. Y'all familiar with it? So J.D. Vance, our incoming vice president of the United States, grew up sort of in some poverty, and his mother was a drug addict and that sort of thing. And he wrote a book about it called Hillbilly Elegy, and then they did a very Hollywood kind of movie about it that he co-produced. So I'm sure it's a lot his version of things. But it was actually kind of interesting to see inside this man, and it was a little bit scary too, because he had a very rough and traumatic childhood, if you believe the movie. And then Lynn was wondering, she said, my goodness, if he has that much trauma bottled up inside of him, she worries how it might come out in the future.
Well, and then if that is to be believed about his childhood, think about children that grows up in that cycle generationally, and then have to face the world, and then how they're received a different, than a J.D. Vance.
He managed to break out of it, out of the cycle. He clearly, his grandmother and grandparents, and they were all kind of Kentucky, Southern Ohio. He calls them hillbillies, and they, pretty poor in drugs and this and that. He managed to break out of it. He had some brains, and he ended up at Ohio State and then Yale Law School, and he broke out of the cycle. Which, I got to give some credit to the guy. But like you say, Ms. Connie, a lot of people can't break out. Don't break out.
A small window of opportunity for one or two is not, a society that's willing to give opportunity for the multitude.
Right.
And so when you start seeing these patterns over and over, the cycle of poverty, drugs, the lack of social and economic conditions, then this is the society that we have.
And of course, with a J.D. Vance, he didn't have to fight against the color of his skin.
Now, I was going there next.
Maybe I just beat you to that punch.
I was headed there.
Yeah.
But, no, just a little aside. The other movie we saw this holiday, we were doing the movie thing. We went down to the movie theater on New Year's Eve and saw the Bob Dylan movie, which I recommend highly to everybody. That whole period of time, when the folk singers were singing about change. No matter what their color was, they sincerely believed, the times were changing, and they were changing in the 60s and early 60s and 70s. Unfortunately, we just didn't keep up on that fight. I just got an eye roll from Ms. Connie there.
Well, capitalism can move the train needle in a different direction. So a lot of people that start off with understanding economic struggle, will be your partner, but only for a moment sometimes. And that's what I see constantly happening, is that people tend to say they have an understanding, and when opportunity knock at their individual door, then they're no longer there.
Yeah. You mentioned capitalism. Capitalism and politics seem to be comfortable bedfellows. How's that, Yvette? And I specifically right now look to this Elon Musk thing, where he spends, a couple of $100 million to help get Donald Trump elected.
Yeah.
And now he's in bed with the incoming president.
That is correct.
And how's that feel?
For me?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good. It just lets you know, pretty much the rich get richer and the poor get poor. And the more money you have, that's what society is saying, the more successful you will be. And, it's funny that you say he's laying in bed. I was going to say he's standing beside him. But, yeah, they definitely have a lot of pillow talk going on in the middle of the night. So both of them. But it's...
it's pretty weird. He gave him a position to go in and overhaul government.
That's what... when you have that much money, and I guess that's how you buy your friendships. And so, no matter how much money you have, at the end, when you get ready to take your last breath, that's what's really going to make a difference. And so, money can't buy you into heaven. Okay. And definitely money can't buy you into hell, but it's going to be your work. Your work is going to speak for itself. And so that's where I come in, like I say, with the NAACP. I let my work speak for itself. And so you can always say, I'm never going to be bought because I'm always going to be err on the side of the right for the people and working with the people and trying to help uplift the people. But
well, let's talk about some of those local issues that you've been working on.
Yes.
We'll go back and let's talk about 2024, and then we'll get to this upcoming year, what you anticipate working on. But what were the big things in 2024? And I apologize, I was a little bit unplugged.
So one of the things is definitely, and Connie can attest to this. So. Definitely, we are fighting for affordable housing, true affordable housing, attainable housing for the community, and we're still working on that. But one
of the hardest issues, in this area and probably everywhere.
It's hard because people want it to be hard. I think it can be if you chose that to be. I mean, when you look at the city of Tampa, and as I was writing down Nebraska yesterday, I saw so many homeless people out there. And so then you say Tampa's a diverse city. So this is a diverse city where everyone should have an opportunity to at least have a place to lay their head. So I don't know about this city staff or the mayor or what their mission or agenda is, but it seems like to me, if I want this to be a great city, let everyone have an opportunity to lay their head down on something, and give them that opportunity. So, I mean, it's no more homeless people are just crazy people or just people who are going through PTSD. These are people who have missed one paycheck, and because of that, they've been evicted and been put out. So we're getting those calls. And so I can say, Connie Burton, she's our housing chair, so she's been fighting a lot of those eviction notices. So we've been winning a lot of those cases and guiding the people where they need to go and how they need to do so. But this city has a lot of work to do with that.
So,
and when you think about, say, this administration, it's always campaign promises, from the beginning. And so with this mayor, Mayor Castor, tend to, in her campaigning, having an understanding that we needed to have a variety of housing options. And no sooner than people are elected, we see a change in formation. And so one of the biggest constant concerns is this ongoing gentrifying of the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And so now people in this neighborhood where this studio exists is outpriced from living in communities that was once described and still have the stigma of being blighted, economically underwater, without having the amenities, not being able to utilize its true tax dollars to lift the people in this community. So we just see developers being able to get pretty much all of the pie. And we see city council rubber stamping with some resistance. There may be 2 or 3 council persons that do some pushback, but when you got a vote of 4, those 2 or 3 lone voices don't matter.
Yeah, I think the number that Mayor Castor promised when she first got elected, 6 years ago now, was 10,000 units, 10,000 new units.
Correct.
Of affordable housing. Mm-hmm. And that very good reporter, what's her name?
Olivia George.
Olivia George, right. Mm-hmm. And she and some others worked really hard busting that story out about a year ago, I think.
Yes.
That the city wasn't even close to, they were in the hundreds, I think, maybe 1,000 at the most. And that really the city, a lot of that was left over from Buckhorn Buckhorn prior administration. It was just old stuff coming through the tunnel, and coming out. But this new administration had really, really fallen severely short on affordable housing. As you guys know, when I was on council up until 2022, that was one of my pet issues, and I was served on various housing boards and this and that to really, and it comes down to money. You can't just wish it to happen. You've got to find that money and make that money happen. I was hoping if they were going to do a sales tax, either a sales tax or a property tax increase, to me, I was advocating to have it dedicated to, that's what we need is a dedicated source, funding source that's there permanently, because you can't Band-Aid it, right?
Correct. Yeah. And when you have, in the mayor's count, you have like public housing stock thrown in there and wonderful press conference. And then when you look at it, like what Olivia George was able to point out, a lot of those units are not even available for low-income people. And so, like Yvette said, if the will is there, the creative minds of this city government will be able to make it happen. Other cities are doing it, and it's just not enough of political will to do it.
Yeah, you got to have the dedication and the focus. And at this point, this mayor only has, 2.5 years left, and I don't know if it's going to happen under her 8-year term.
I don't know. I know the Walmart on Hillsborough and off of 15th Street. They starting salary is $13 an hour. Just to as a stalker, as a lead person, I think it goes up $1, $14 an hour. So, but right down the street on Hillsborough and 22nd, you're building luxury apartments. So,
is that where the old movie theater?
That's where the old Funland is. Yeah, luxury apartments.
And that's going to be luxury.
Yeah.
Isn't that a shame?
Yeah. So,
do they have any set aside at all for?
I'm pretty
low
sure
income?
they probably got the 10%, which is what the federal government is allowing them to have, and they're not going anything over that. So they'll have that 10% sprinkled in there, but to get that. But what they're doing is they have outpriced the community because the little girl or the young man who wants to be sustainable and independent will never be able to live there if she's working at that Walmart. And so, but yet you tell people to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. They're trying, but it make it very difficult when you can't find a decent place to lay your head.
Yeah, I remember getting so upset down there at down there by Ybor on Nucio. What was the name of that complex?
Tampa Park Apartment.
Tampa Park, yeah. And when they came in for their very first rezoning, I said, okay, how much affordable housing, do you have in these 1,000 units or whatever they wanted to get rezoned in front of us? Of course, they had already torn down, or they were in the process of tearing down how many affordable housing units were down there. I think a couple, 300-400 at least, that had been there for years and years and years and years, and were always there for the working class people, right? They got built by the shipbuilders. The what do they call them? Longshoremen, yeah. And they were there for the working class folks.
That's right.
I taught some of them down there at Booker T. Washington. I taught their kids, and then between that and then tearing down Central Park Village and replacing it, with some level. Central Park did a little bit better job. They got some more affordable housing because it is Tampa Housing Authority. But across the street there with Tampa Park, I thought that was an embarrassment. I couldn't vote for that, even though everybody was like, "Oh, it's wonderful, it's wonderful." So I couldn't vote for that because they were only offering like 5% or something like that.
Yeah.
Did they do any better later on?
No, they didn't. And this city seems to profit off of the backs of poor people or lower social economical people. And that's where they get the federal grants for, that's where they get their compensation from federally and get their state money. But they get that money for that, but they don't pour that money back into the community.
And that's a good point, because when you think about community development grant dollars, and you would think, wow, that money there, the poverty level, all of the statistical data that is utilized to secure that money. And then you say, well, where did it go? Oh, well, we expanding the sidewalk at Riverwalk. I mean, like,
wow.
Where do we supposed to, have a good social landing point? And it just continued. And like Yvette just said, that apartment complex right there on Hillsborough and 22nd, only 6 of the units out of that whole development would be 3-bedroom units. So it don't tend to be family friendly. Mm-hmm. And then when you go, even with the housing authority, it's hard to configure those. You might have 5 units at 30%, 4 units at 60%, and everything else is at 80% of the AMI. So again, if you don't have those dollars on the front end, 3 times the amount of rent that they want you to have, you're a disqualifier. And so now we're finding, and Yvette see this constantly, that our voting block space has been so dispersed because now people got to move out into the county. People got to take whatever, housing assistance vouchers they can find and just go wherever they might be able to, find some residency. So a lot of this...
40, let's talk about that voting block thing, but, 40 plus years ago, the city, created what was referred to as the Black District.
Yes.
The East Tampa downtown sort of black voting district. What is that, District 5?
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, I wanted to give a sad shout out to the passing of Frank Reddick.
Yes.
That was his district. We lost City Councilman Frank Reddick, I think it was Monday, I think it was.
Yeah, may he rest in peace.
Yeah, and his funeral will be Saturday for anybody who wants to attend. But and I was buffing up on some of the articles about Frank. I served with Frank very briefly. We overlapped for about 6 months back when I was on the first time, and he seemed like quite a gentleman, but he was very quiet at the time. And I'm thinking to myself, is Frank going to grow into this role? And then as I read through the articles during the Buckhorn administration, that he did, that his voice got louder and louder, and that he butted heads with Bob on some really important issues, in the city, and promises that were made that Frank Reddick felt were never kept. And he was hard during that time. He said the city had let down his community in West Tampa and East Tampa, and had not done anything that they had promised. And,
there was a lot of promises that were made during campaigns that were broken with Bob Buckhorn, and definitely, with the current mayor. But that's what they do. They make these campaigns and when they're out on the campaign trail, and they want your vote. So how
about council though? Tampa City Council, are they any better? Do they hold up their promises any better?
So we're going into 2025, John. So City Council has a lot of work to do, because what I find out is that they're not listening to the actual people. Some of them are listening to the developers and who's giving money to their campaigns. So it's a lot that they need to listen to they need to listen to the people. And when it comes to issues in District 5, we have to go down there in the masses of numbers in order to get their attention. But if they still want to do something because the city wants them to do it, they still vote against us, even though we went down there in the masses. But other communities, they can go down there with 3 or 4 people and get exactly what they want and get everything that they need. But when it comes to District 5, it's really difficult. Frank Reddick I give him a lot of credit for fighting for the Citizen Review Board. I mean, he was the one that stood up and demanded that we got that. So,
and then tragically, Tallahassee takes it away.
Takes it away. Yeah. And
what the Lord giveth, Tallahassee takes away.
Takes it away. But we had that time together to speak up and to say something. And because he stood up for his community, he was pretty much blackballed, when it came to getting things and resources for his community, which is District 5. And if you look at the makeup of District 5 now,
the percentages
have dropped tremendously, and we stand a chance of losing District 5. And so, sometimes you have to wonder, is that what the city has always wanted to do, is to bust up or get rid of or erase or eradicate the black district?
And if you go to the courts these days, I'm not sure the courts are very friendly to those concepts anymore. Like they used to be. But not so much.
No, they've changed.
Well, This is America. And so we are not with no shock and awe from our perspective that these type of struggles have always existed in America, and it has been based on resistance that we was able to get, black leadership, Perry Harvey and all of those that followed behind him. It didn't come as a willing hand. And so our responsibility under the leadership of Yvette and the NAACP is to continue to be a sounding board to say these are the things that African Americans are entitled to. Our sweat, tears, our labor here in America is not going to be erased because now you expand District 5 and now the downtown district is part of District 5.
Right.
We already recognize those that could afford to live in that area, how they tend to vote. But our voice, we plan on being just as disruptive. We plan on, through our political engagement, informing the community as to what we see happening. And hopefully, like they say, trouble don't last forever. Trouble don't last forever. I am so happy to be going into 2025 because now we're going to see who our allies are. We're going to see the real coming of America, how people is going to line up. Are they going to line up on the side of what they can know to be wrong in order for their own individual survival and watch the planet just erode? That's what I'm looking forward
Connie,
to.
you bring up a good point, and after this election in November, I know some people who had been very, very active, and now all they want to do is go home, put a pillow over their head, and pretend it's not happening, and wait 4 years to see if something happens better. But I don't think you guys are happy with that approach, right?
So let me tell you.
I'm talking about good people, people who were on the streets, people who were in the meetings, but now are so discouraged and so frustrated. What is the message to get them out and encourage them not to give it up?
So when you say, so there's a couple of things. When you say I'm tired and you go home, then you go home. But when I say I'm tired, it gives me strength. Let me tell you. Let me put it in a way. So like Fannie Lou Hamer says, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So that's when you get up and you start doing something. So you just got to keep on. And like they say, keep pressing on. Black folks are resilient people. Let's talk about slavery. People were tired of slavery back then, but as they,
But Ron DeSantis says slavery wasn't such a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's from his perspective. Okay. So, that's from his charm.
I'm sorry. I'm a smart aleck.
When the slaves got tired, they organized and came together, and then they had to do what they had to do, and then no longer have slavery. But the NAACP was formed out of, the lynching. People got tired of black folks being lynched. So when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, you don't just go home and lay down or sit on your couch and say, I've had enough and I'm on a wait. No, that fuels your fire and that keeps you going. That's what keeps me going. And that's what it is. So this city has a lot to do. One thing I want to mention real quick, and I got to mention this here. the city council recognized, and I'm not sure if you were there, that black folks was treated wrong. Mm-hmm. So they created that resolution.
Right.
Okay. So that resolution sat dormant after Councilman Goose put it out there and voted on it for about a year. Mm-hmm. And for a whole year, I would constantly hear Connie in my ear just saying something. What about this? What about? And nobody's talking about it. So I really didn't dove into it until she kept saying something. So anyway, we looked into it. I looked into it and I was like, hey, let's hold them accountable. Because that's what we do, hold them accountable. And so fast forward, I'm so proud of Connie because now she is the chair of that resolution committee, the 568. So she's the chair of that. But that resolution, if they don't understand it, pretty much the city and the city of Tampa city council is apologizing for how black folks were treated back then. But the question is, you're apologizing, but what are you going to do moving forward? Mm-hmm. And so action has to come up out of this, no matter what. Action has to come out and to the point where, I like the placards that say our history was once here because of education, but that doesn't give us comfort like we need.
That's not the end. That's just the beginning.
That's the beginning.
Yeah. If you're tuning in just now, we are WMNF. The show is Down and Dirty. I'm John Dingfelder. We have two fantastic guests here today and good friends of ours. Is Yvette Lewis, the president of the Tampa Hillsborough chapter, the NAACP, and Ms. Connie Burton, a decades-long fighter, and now the vice president, second vice president of the NAACP chapter. We are taking your calls, and I think I just saw one pop in. Hold on. Oh, speak of the devil. We got Lynn, I believe, in Tampa.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies. So good to hear you on the air, and thank you, John Dingfelder, for all you do. It's a good show. I had a question, if we can step back a little, about grants and the things that you were talking about earlier. In doing my documentaries and things, I will often go for grants, and there's usually a checks and balances where, you have to show what you've done or how you've used it. I find it really disturbing to hear talk about how the city might be incentivizing the poor, maybe keeping them poor so they can go for grants, and then do they not have to report how they spent money? And why would the Riverwalk help people who need housing and stuff? I mean, where are the checks and balances? I don't understand that, and it seems almost corrupt that they would be doing that.
Connie, you brought up that point.
Yeah, well, I lived in public housing for about 20 years. And
I remember I covered those meetings. I remember you.
And, I was always amazed on how the people would, raise their voices for economic opportunities, and then maybe we might get a job there. Something that never moved the people forward. And so you would have this nestle of people that live below the poverty level. And then if you go back 10 years later, 5 years later, and say, you've received so many federal grants, in what ways can we qualify that the people benefited? And what we would see a lot of times is that administrative staff, we would see, improvement on some training for the, upper echelon. But the people condition remained the same. And so I think in a lot of ways people are able to, because people are just being worn down, tired. How do we keep on fighting for things that we feel leadership, people in political office that make political promise should automatically do? There has not been enough accountability.
Yeah, so
I'm surprised that the federal government doesn't require that, though. I mean, it just seems certain grants require that in something as big as what the beginning.
Well, they might just look at the numbers.
So what they do,
I see what you're saying.
they have great grant writers and they have great lawyers to put in all of those vernaculars and all of those beautiful words. They put it all in there so it looks good. And, unfortunately, people are not coming down to actually see if it's benefiting the people. When you talk about grants, you got to also talk. Let's go back to the CRA. Those are our taxpayer dollars. So they are giving our taxpayer dollars to developers that come here. But we're not even the people who live here who are paying taxes in that area, in that district. We can't even benefit from that because those developers, the houses are overpriced. But we're subsidizing a lot of this stuff for the housing and the stuff that the buildings that they're building. And we've found out that there was one company that came, they gave money to that company to start a business in that area. But then a couple of months later, they open up a restaurant in another district. And so, but you come and get our money.
Yeah. Hey, Lynn, I've got a question for you. What's your advice for people who are discouraged by these recent elections, especially the November election, and just want to, slip away and not be involved anymore?
Okay, you're pushing my buttons now. You know that. I'm one of them. I am discouraged, and years ago we had hope, and I don't want to start crying on the air, but I'm upset about the state we're in. And I'm also tired. You reach a certain age and you've been fighting or you've been trying to work for change. And that's why I really admire you ladies. You're amazing. Keep it up. And you do it with such a positive attitude, and I know it pisses off a lot of people. And I think I love you all the more for that. But I appreciate that you still have the fight. And I guess maybe you need to ask them that question, John, because I'm tired and discouraged, Yeah,
but they need everybody, and they need you too.
Yes.
Yeah, we do. And, I love this here. My mother raised 7 kids on a housekeeper's salary. I never saw or heard her say, I was tired. I'd never seen it. So I said, if she can do it, then I can do it, and I just keep right on going. And, let me tell you, one of my greatest strength is when you walk into a store, someone who you don't know just come up to you and say, hey, I saw you on TV, and thank you for fighting for us. You a fighter. And that's it. So, and I'm saying to myself, oh, my God. And that's one of the greatest things. When the common person in our community comes up to you and say, thank you. I'm not looking for praise or accolade or anything.
That was always the best reward I ever had from serving on council.
Yeah.
And Lenny knows, somebody come up to me in the grocery store or whatever and say, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for fighting that fight, whatever it was that day. They also, sometimes they would say, the words coming out of your mouth was what I was thinking when I was watching. And that, no better feeling. Better feeling.
That's it.
Just to be the mouthpiece. You guys are the mouthpiece, but you need the people behind you too.
Definitely.
Because if you don't have any people behind you, then nobody's going to pay attention.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And so, with the NAACP, we're sitting strong. We're the largest branch in the state of Florida. And I tell people we've been around, the National has been around since 1909. This branch has been around since, I think, 1912. So we're not going nowhere. We're here and we ain't going nowhere. I saw
about in response to the state, and I don't know if the feds are involved, but in response to the state and the local book banning that had been happening over the last couple of years, that you guys got together with the churches and created a freedom library and a freedom school.
Yes.
Because, the state doesn't, I made a joke earlier about slavery. It's not a joke. The state wants to rewrite history and say, that these atrocities didn't happen and, and all of that. But you're not going to let them rewrite history. What are you doing?
No, so we definitely have a freedom library, and it's over at Beulah Baptist Institute. And so, and we also, right now, the Black School, Black Saturday, that's what it was called. So it's on hold right now, so we'll pick that back up, and I think it starts back up in February.
And what's in the Freedom Library?
So the Freedom Library is anyone can go over there and get books. And if you have books that were banned, books dealing with cultural or diversity, whatever word you want to use, you can donate those books as well into the library. And so I encourage people to take a class, take your child over there and go into that library and sit and look and let them get a book and teach them how to do a book report, and do some research on that, because it has some really great history books in there, or just books dealing with our color. I will never forget, because me growing up, of course, as my skin tone was so dark, and you would hear all kind of things. And the book that I read, it was called The Skin I'm In, and it just gave me so much power as a little Black girl.
How old were you think?
So I was probably about, I think it was like 16 years old. Mm-hmm. And then I had to, that's when I realized that my Black is beautiful. My Black is me, and I am so proud of it. So my older brother always would tell me, just be proud of who you are. And so,
but look at the power of that book on your life.
It is. Yeah. And that's what we want to encourage people to go over there and get some books. Educate your kids so they can love who they are and know who they are.
Yvette, can I go out on a limb and say that was a woke moment for you?
It definitely was, because I was like, wow, I got it. Because like I say, as a little girl, my brother would always empower me to, there's a little thing in the community, they would say, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. And so my brother would always say, don't worry about it. You just a sweet little girl. And I was like, okay. But reading that book, it just gave me the feeling that I am Black and I am loved and I know who I am.
And some things that the governor and others have done to try to hurt us as a people and our culture has been almost like a reopening of a door. So now, what is all this stuff they don't want us to know about ourselves?
Yeah.
And so now we're finding more engagement, conversations in the community. I know even in my own small family, the children, they want to know. They want to know about our history. They want to know things that we have had our imprint on, the things that we have built, that America just didn't miraculously get here by itself. So when we talk about labor in our community, we have the labor union, the A. Philip Randolph. We have the beginning of civilization on the backs of Black people. And so whatever Ron DeSantis and all of that clown show want to do, it has just really opened the door for making our people now want to have more historical engagement about our history.
I really have trouble understanding this fear of woke. Why are they afraid of people being awake? Why are they afraid of this various history? As a Jewish person, okay, when I hear about people saying, the Holocaust never happened, 6 million Jews didn't die in the gas chamber, blah, blah, blah. It's like, are you kidding me? You want to erase that history too? And I know it's got to be the same or similar feeling for you guys.
Well, I think, in my opinion, when I just think of the nature of, whiteness as it relates to everybody on the planet, you're not the only person. You're not the only people that's here. And so we have to embrace, support, other cultures, other people, things that they have done to contribute to the world. And unfortunately, for those that want to carry the message of keeping the attack on wokeness, it shows the inferiority of who they are.
And fear is a key word in inferiority, because I think that's really the crux of it.
Yes.
They're afraid of losing power.
There you go. I'm going to say the power, because if you go back, let's go back to slavery. They didn't want the slaves to read. They didn't want to educate the slaves, because guess what? They would have lost those slaves, and those slaves was free labor or cheap labor back then. So it's a power thing that
I never thought about that in terms of reading. Mm-hmm. They didn't want them to read, and they got whipped and beaten, probably killed for reading.
Yeah. And
look at that parallel jump forward 150 years. They don't want them to read those particular books. They don't want to read. They only want them reading the books that they pick.
Yeah.
Right.
And let's be honest. Our history, when I say our, I'm talking about African American history. It's not pretty. It doesn't look good on both parts. On the African American person, because we had to endure it. But then when the person who inflicted the pain upon us, it's not pretty. But guess what? We're all here. History is history. We can't erase it, but we can sure enough can understand it and move forward, so we don't replicate it or duplicate it, and so we can just understand it. And like I say, our history, it shouldn't make you feel guilty. But if you feel guilty, then maybe that's something you need to go down on your knees to and repent with your God. But that make you want to change something and just take it completely away from us. Shame on them.
Lenny, you had the benefit of growing up in Manhattan and going to public schools in Manhattan, sitting side by side, with Black children, Spanish children, children of all color and creed.
I never saw color. Yeah, all my best friends were just my best friends. It never even occurred to me. And
that's kind of
stories about the South, and I didn't understand it.
Yeah, and at least for the first four, I went through fourth grade here in Tampa, and it wasn't like that. I mean, I don't know that it was formal segregation at that point. It probably still was in the 60s, I guess, in mid-60s. It wasn't supposed to be. I think the courts had already come out and said no, but in Roosevelt Elementary in South Tampa, where I was, K through 4, I never saw a black kid. And so I think it's been a little harder for me personally to have grown past that.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you just read up the street, we had 2 huge public housing. One called Ponce de Leon and one called College Hill. Black folks stayed in College Hill, and Hispanics and mostly white people stayed in Ponce de Leon.
Even public housing.
And so we could not even play in a Central Park. I mean, in the playground that was, a joint to both of those housing projects. And so, I thank God for Yvette, because she leans very heavily toward the Word of God. In my mind, when I think about capitalism and the work and the pain, the suffering of our people, and the reason why now, even with this generation of people in power, do not want this newer generation that love black culture, black music, black style, black, they just love it, right? They understand that I forgive you is not enough. I'm talking about compensation. I'm talking about reparation. As you talk about capitalism, that you have to be willing to have something that it don't all belongs to you. To take away people's community just because you could write an unjust law, it is being challenged, and it should be challenged. It is like those that came to America that was looking for whatever their new start, that we're not just going to disappear out of our communities because you want a $700,000 home inside of East Tampa. It's not going to happen. So my whole task, in going to city council, sometimes I'm talking to the council, but most times I'm talking to the community. Mm-hmm. I am talking to the community. I am saying, this is the leadership that's in charge. These are the actions that they are taking today, and we need to figure out what political direction we're going to go in. And I'm a registered Democrat, and I say it all the time, but I have become disenchanted in terms of the group, and I say the group that has been loyal to the Democrats in terms of keeping a powerful voting blocks for the Democratic Party, to watch them sit back and give us these little mundane answers as if their hands is tied behind their back and they can't do anything for us.
I pointed out, I think last week, that the majority of city council, if not all, are registered Democrats.
Every one of them.
But
we got a whole Democratic council.
But sometimes they sure don't sound or act like it, do they?
No,
and
they
the same
don't.
thing with our Madam Mayor.
No, they don't. So Tampa is a Democratic city, so they say, and with a Democratic city council, Democratic mayor, but yet black folks are still fighting and arguing and asking and pleading for the same thing over and over again. With the CRA, we were the first in the state of Florida to have a CRA, but yet we're still last on the list to get the simplest things, which is sidewalks and parks and all of this stuff here. But if they give it to us, they give it to us out of mercy.
Personally, and I don't know how y'all feel, but personally, I miss Orlando Goods being on city council. Mm-hmm. I don't know how his replacement's doing. Like I told you, I don't necessarily watch week after week, but at least Goods, and I'll pat myself on the back a little bit, but at least Goods and I were the voice. Mm-hmm. We sat next to each other and we were the united voice, and we could very often get 2 more votes to do things. And I miss Orlando being on there.
And that's why you suffered your political attack. So,
That's a whole nother show.
That's another show. But check this out. We're keeping a political scorecard.
Oh, good.
Because we know that somebody on that council now is going to want to be the mayor. Going to want to be the mayor. If not mayor, they're planning on going into some other political direction.
Right.
And we've been tasked, under Yvette's leadership, to pay attention, to write a report coming from the city council meeting, so we can present to our community that when they come within the next 2 years asking for our vote, we are going to be able to say, but you voted against this, you voted against the interests of our community. And so a campaign slogans ain't going to matter no more.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. Make them walk the walk, as they say, right?
That is correct.
So the hour has just flown by. We're here with Yvette Lewis and Connie Burton from Tampa Hillsborough NAACP. If folks need the help of the NAACP, if they want to participate and join the NAACP, Yvette, how do they get in touch with you?
So they can go to our website, visit our website, naacphillsborough.org, and go there. And you will see a lot of our information. If you're on social media, follow us on social media. And also, too, let me tell you, January the 16th, we will have our swearing in of new officers, and we would love for you to come out and be a part of that. And that is at New Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church on 40th Street at 7 o'clock. And if you go to our website, you'll see information on our website.
That's a free event, I think.
That is free. You don't have to pay anything.
Free to the people.
Free.
Okay. And we are about running out of time. Miss Lynn, do you have the last word?
Just thank you for all you do, and I guess we need to keep up the fight and make it even better and stronger and smarter, huh?
That is correct. So, Lynn, I'm here for you to prop you up when you're just feeling down and just. I can't let you go home and sit down. Okay.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, and thank you, John. Listen, I'm really sad about what the powers that be did to you. You know that, but I'm glad that you still have a voice and you let people know what's going on.
We'll keep the fight up together. This is Down and Dirty. Join us next Friday. Join us every Friday, 10 to 11, and we appreciate you listening. Appreciate your calls. Simon, sorry I couldn't get to you today, but call back in next week. And have a good one. Happy 2025. We got a good start to it.
WMNF Tampa.